What has 2.5 billion, yes, that's with a B, folks, $2.5 billion in rent collection told us? What is it telling us about tenants? What should landlords take away from this survey or deep dive on the data? Obviously, we're going to talk with the CEO of Himlane, who has been using or collecting rents for quite some time now. I think has 50,000 tenants or something like that, crazy number in the system. But we're going to talk about $2.5 billion in rent collection and what data did we find out. Welcome to the show. How you doing, Dana?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So remind me, how many tenants currently on platform? Because it's a massive number.
Yeah, ones that are doing rent every single month and transacting through it, it's got to be now 70,000, around
Jeez, you
70,000
keep you're
tenants in
growing
there.
like a weed.
Yes. And it's been fun because we have tenants from affordable housing all the way up to more luxury properties. And so with the data, it's been really fun to slice it and kind of see what's going on with rent collection. We can see it over time. We'll have more reports coming out, by the way, this month related to eviction rates, delinquencies by state, by city, all of that as well. And when we do it by city, we try to find those cities where we have huge content, like a huge number of properties in it. So it's stat significant there. But yeah, it's been really fun to look at because with all this data, you can make better decisions on when should rent be due and understanding tenure of tenants with rent collection. So I'm excited to share that today.
Yeah, I love the fact that, obviously you have this growing repository each and every day, each and every month, year. It's growing. Not only more people on platform, but more transactions each and every month. And now, your data analysis team is going back in and trying to uncover the kernels of truth, the kernels of value, so that we landlords can make better decisions. So why don't you start with kind of why you did this, and we'll talk about some of the stats that you came back with.
Yeah, the reason to me in doing it is most people have rent due the first of the month, right? And I've spoken to some property managers and investors who are like, great, no, I'm actually going to have it. If they move in on the 20th of the month, it's the 20th of every month that rent is due. But that's very, they don't want to prorate anything. They're like, it's just always due on the 20th, right? But that's very unconventional.
Yes,
And
I would say so. Yes.
very unconventional. It's usually due on the first of the month because you get paid on the 30th. But there's also been, weekly payments as well. We've seen, hey, your tenants get paid weekly, maybe, in certain markets, and especially those who are hourly, they get paid on Fridays. Why not have rent due every single week? And so we've seen that. We've seen payment plans. We've seen things work to try to make sure you yourself feel comfortable about getting the rent on time. And based on what you've set. And so from a data perspective, 84% of rent in our system is due on the first of the month. And
I would have guessed it was higher.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have guessed that. No, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. No, I would have guessed it was a lot higher. But this is the other interesting fact about it. The 6th of the month, if rent is due on the 6th of the month, the collection rate is actually higher. So you collect more on-time payments if you have rent on the 6th of the month. That's just overall throughout the system. And so why I bring this up is that understanding your tenant and potentially when they get paid or when something comes due, I think a lot of this has to do with like when some social security payments or something like that come in, right?
Okay.
Understanding the situation and then the risk, because obviously most people have mortgages due on the 6th, so you don't want to push it too much. But it actually shows that like if you do work with your tenants and you could actually increase your collection rates of on-time payments.
Yeah, so that's an interesting. That is very interesting. And I would have never guessed that. That's why I love the fact that you had the data, but more importantly, going back and trying to find the kernels of truth we should look at. So again, if you are a landlord, and again, on your rent and your tenant application, you're figuring out where the source of income comes from.
Yes.
And you might want to have that conversation. If Social Security is, the main driver of income, or at least half, you might want to talk about the 6th being the date, because again, the 1st is just impractical. given the
Yeah.
money shows up on the 3rd or 4th, or whenever that money shows up. So
Yeah.
instead of, and then the beauty about, because again, in some states, in some cities, if it's due on the 1st, it's late on the 5th. So now your tenant's always going to be late, right? Because
Yeah.
they fundamentally can't pay until the 6th. So again, I think landlords might want to have that conversation. That's a great insight and would really build some loyalty with tenants. So that's a great find.
Yeah. And then the other interesting thing about it is like, the other question is like, do you always still make it due on the 1st and say, yeah, you could pay on the 6th and I'll have the late fee start on the 7th. That way you really make sure it comes in on that date. There's a lot of different ways to kind of slice and think about how do you actually incentivize payments to be made by as soon as possible.
Sure.
And so there's that. The other interesting thing is tenant tenure.
Okay.
And this is just really strong insights for long-term tenants. Okay. If a tenant has been in the property for over 24 months, you will get of that on-time payment. And, there's tenants who pay on the 2nd or 3rd, so they're not included, but you will get a 93% collection rate of on-time payments. This is all of the payments in our system.
Wow.
And the lower the tenure goes, so like if you look at 3 to 6 months or 6 to 12 months of how long the tenant's been in the property, it actually goes lower. It goes to 91%. And the reason I bring that up is it's just another case to be said about screening tenants, getting the right ones, getting long-term tenants, because again, not only is it great, you don't have vacancy and turnover costs and everything else that goes into it, but also tenants who stay for a longer period of time, you've set that precedent and you're more likely to get rent on time.
Well, the other thing that tells me, and again, it's just a reminder of good practice, is, when you have a tenant in your property for 2-3 years, whatever, don't grind them for that extra $25, right? Because that could force a decision for them to move. Then not only do you bring in a new tenant, which again will have lower collection, 91 versus 93, but you also go through a big remodel. It's kind of lose, lose, lose. So again, if you're in that sweet spot, and again, for me, single family homes average tenure is 8 years. I am not in a rush to raise rents on single family homes because again, I don't want them. The turns are just bigger, right? More money. And you're right. I would, I haven't run the numbers, but I would guess my numbers are very similar, if not a little stronger, on single family homes greater than 24 months. Now, some of that's just because your data gets homes and apartments. It's all there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty cool find.
Yeah. And then we also have some is also affordable housing and, payments like that. So our data is kind of everything out there, not just single families. And then the other interesting thing is just auto payment. It is illegal in most states, I think. I don't know if it's in all 50 states, but I know it's illegal in states to require automatic payment. So and we have real estate investors and landlords come to Hem Lane and they'll say, hey, can I require my tenant? Can you set them up on auto pay? And we're like, no, it's illegal to just auto draft. Like you can't do that.
Bad. Yes.
But if someone is on auto pay, collection rate is 99.5%. So that additional 0.5% is like, oh, it auto drafted and they accidentally didn't have enough funds.
Yeah, right.
But it's so much higher, the collection rate on auto pay. And the reason I bring it up is a lot of our experience in app is trying to push tenants to auto pay because we're sending them a reminder the day before this is going to be drafted because we don't want it to fail, right? That's stressful for everyone. But trying to get tenants set up on that auto pay so they know it's going through and set the precedent of it, set it and forget it, but make sure you have the money in your account. If your tenants have auto pay set up, there's just such a lower risk as you can imagine with default. And so it's a good thing when you see scheduled on auto pay in the system.
Yeah. The one question that just jumped in my head, going back to something you said earlier about weekly pays. Did you notice, or maybe you didn't look for on-time payments, weekly pay versus monthly? Is that a data set you collected?
We collect that. This analysis I didn't do weekly, I only did monthly, but
Okay.
it's another one I'll share in we can share it in another episode and launch it because we haven't actually put that data out. But
Got it.
the weekly I found to be really good for tenants who get paid on Fridays.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of tenants in service industries and tip industries that are cash based
Mhm.
that that weekly is probably the right thing for them because again, this is all about landlords talking to their tenants because most tenants aren't professional tenants trying to game the system. Most tenants want a low stress. They want to pay the rent. They don't want to be hassled. So again, landlords, I think you just need to talk to your tenant about what would work for them. And again, if certainly if you're a mom and pop landlord and your tenant says, "Hey, can we do weekly every Friday, every Monday, whatever?" Yeah,
Mhm.
I think you might want to consider that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and they usually get paid, my understanding, most of the weekly, it gets paid on Friday. If you have it due on Mondays, they actually have spent it all on the
Yeah.
weekend.
Got to make it due
So
Friday. Yeah. Yeah.
due Friday as your due date. So I think there's a lot of that of knowing a bit more
Know
because
the
again,
tenant. Yeah.
the most stressful thing is like, oh my gosh, I've got some sort of damage to the asset or my tenant is not paying. So if you can reduce that risk and really understand the tenant, their financial situation when they get paid, you'll be able to set yourself up for success in the system. And like I said, like the first of the month, I would always think is the best day and has the best collection rates. But as we're seeing in the data, if you have a due date of the 6th of the month, you're more likely to collect on-time payments based on the data we have. And so those are probably more sophisticated investors, managers on our platform working with the tenant, but setting that expectation. I can set this date, but you do need to pay on time.
Yeah. I think, again, that's just know thy tenant. And again, I think the other piece you hit was the longer tenured tenants, they're just, it's a routine. They want to stay. You want them to stay. Don't give them a reason to move by, taking it absolutely
Mhm.
to market. So that's really cool. Any other nuggets that were uncovered in this current research?
Yeah, so the other one I would just say is situations. If you go to hemling.com/resources, you can find these articles. There's one on the best day to collect rent, another one on, what rent payments have told us about tenants. There is a section in there that just says your situation, like
Mm,
signing a brand new lease, what the data shows for when it should be. If a tenant passes this 6-month marker, what you can do to potentially negotiate long-term reliable tenants. And so anyway, you can kind of go through that and look at various different scenarios to say, hey, what should I be doing and thinking about? And then we also do it and break it down by single family homes versus multifamily, rents that are below 1,000 in monthly rent versus those that are 3,500 and higher.
mm.
And so all of that, we kind of put together different scenarios that you can look at for your portfolio.
The other thing I want to ask the audience is we have someone here who can get access to $2.7 billion in rent collection. What would you want to know? Think about that. Think
Yeah.
about that. Multiple years, 70,000 tenants paying rent. What data, what question would you ask? And you know what? Maybe we will get a report on that. And then, Dana, the other thing I keep telling you is we're sleeping on the resources tab of Hemlane. People got to go there, hemlane.com/resources. There's so much data there, and now these
Ah.
articles and more. So, folks, go check it out. And where should we send them if they want to give Hemlane a try?
Yeah, go to hemlane.com, HEMLANE.com. Just mention one rental at a time because you do get our best and highest discount of 20% off for that first year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yep.